amid tensions between India and the United States over these reciprocal tariffs. Now Washington has decided to withdraw the sanctions waiver for operations at the Chabahar Port in Iran. This is a port that is managed by India, by an Indian company. The management, the running of the affairs of the port is done by an Indian company. So the sanctions waiver has now been taken off by the State Department, which has said in a note put out yesterday that the move to revoke this sanctions waiver was in line with what President Donald Trump's maximum pressure policy is against the Iranian regime. Just back in May of this year, not too long ago, India and Iran signed a 10-year agreement linking the Chabahar Port's operations, as part of which New Delhi offered a credit window of $250 million for infrastructure development at the port. Now this move could affect Delhi's long-term investment in the project and also long-term connectivity. I'm going to get to that, the significance of the Chabahar Port, because this is something that India has been talking about for a number of years across various political dispensations, when UPA was in power, now when NDA is in power. The Chabahar Port is an ambitious project. It's helmed by India, but it is in Iran. The United States has decided to revoke the sanctions exception, which was issued first in 2018, in the first Trump term, by the way. This port is key because it's barely 70-odd kilometers from Gwadar in Pakistan, which is a crucial link for the China-Pakistan economic corridor. So Chabahar, in that sense, is India's answer to Gwadar. India has been eyeing Chabahar as an important project in the context of regional trade and connectivity, and also because Pakistan does not give you overland rights. This is a way to bypass Pakistan, bypass Afghanistan, and secure trade routes to Central Asia, which is absolutely important. That is the only way India can access Russia as well, through the Central Asian republics. So the Chabahar port being taken off the sanctions waiver list is a definitive blow to future expansion plans there in that port. I want to play out what the MEA spokesperson had to say on this issue, and I'll get an expert to weigh in as well.
You would have seen the press statement which was issued by the US side yesterday on revocation of sanctions waiver that applies to Chabahar Port. We are presently examining the implications that this revocation has for India.
All right, I want to go across to Mr. Kanwal Sibal. He's former Foreign Secretary to the Government of India. This is, I don't know if it was a bolt from the blue or, it was unexpected, but certainly it is something that is going to have huge ramifications and repercussions. First of all, the timing of it. At a time when we thought, there seems to be a bit of a thaw. The President of the US and Prime Minister Modi spoke a couple of days ago on Prime Minister's birthday. The rhetoric coming out of Washington was seemingly calming down as far as tariffs were concerned, and suddenly you have this. What explains?
I think United States wants to tighten the noose on India. They want to use various points of pressure to compel India to satisfy US demands, not only on the trade side, but also our purchases of Russian oil. Now, the Chabahar port, originally, I was Foreign Secretary when this port idea was put on the table. And the idea was to actually develop, as you rightly said to begin with, an alternative route to Afghanistan, because we were not getting any overland transit facilities through Pakistan. And at that time, the Taliban were not in power. And the United States supported the idea at that time. Yeah. But the progress was slow for a variety of reasons. Then it began to pick up. And in any case, we still need this route for access to Afghanistan and through Afghanistan to Central Asia. You would recall that in the last few weeks, there was a trilateral meeting between India, Iran, and Uzbekistan, because Uzbekistan is very, very keen to push this project. And then if it were to develop along the lines that were earlier thought of, then it can get linked to the international North-South corridor.
Yeah.
Then on to Russia. So this becomes a part of pressure that the United States wants to put on Russia, on Iran, and on India. And this is totally uncalled for. These are none of the strategic concerns that the United States would have with regard to our relations with the United States, with Russia, or with Iran, or anybody else. Mm-hmm. It is a pure connectivity project. It doesn't mean that we're going to have some military Cooperation is the result of this project. It's a trade-related issue altogether. Now, we find it now very difficult to handle this because, as you know, once the United States applies sanctions, then it is almost impossible to have them revoked.
So what is the way forward in the sense that, does the port become viable or non-viable now? Because what happens to, other shipping companies and shipping lines? Would they be interested in using the Chabahar port because of, the sanctions now going to be imposed? Because they also fall prey to it.
See, a couple of things. Even in the past, before the sanctions were revoked, we were having great difficulty in actually getting foreign companies to help us with installing cranes and otherwise developing the berths because they were so afraid of US sanctions. Now that the sanctions have been imposed once again, so any help that we need from foreign companies to run the berth and run the port will become that much more difficult. When it comes to Indian companies, if they have interest in the United States, if they are dealing in dollars, they would be very reluctant to expose themselves to the risk of sanctions. It's a government-to-government project. So our finance ministry would also have certain concerns about whether they should go ahead or we should go ahead and not observe the sanctions or we should bend under sanctions that the United States has now imposed. It's a difficult decision for us. Now, if we use the diplomatic route behind the scenes to try and reason with the United States, it is not necessary to do this and that they are unnecessarily sabotaging a pure connectivity project, which is actually gives us access to Central Asia, etc., etc. But then they will want something in return because Washington has become extremely transactional. So they'll say, all right, in that case, give us openings that we want on the trade side or stop buying oil from Russia. So they'll use it as a lever against us to extract more concessions from us. Unfortunately, the irony in this is, as you said, Gwadar is next door. United States has never put pressure either on Pakistan or on China on Gwadar. Now, if they want to sabotage Chabahar, actually they're playing the game of China.
Correct.
They're giving China more strategic access to our area, to the Indian Ocean, and they are blocking India's strategic access across the Indian Ocean to its partners.
In fact, a slew of actions move in that direction, whether it is the fact that, no sanctions, oil sanctions have been imposed on China, despite the fact that China imports more Russian oil than India does. Today, President Trump and President Xi Jinping have spoken. I believe, I haven't seen the readout, but looks like they've cut a deal on TikTok. It's very likely that they could meet as early as next month, I think on the sidelines of an ASEAN meeting or an APEC meeting somewhere in East Asia, most likely in Korea. So yeah, there are things that India needs to ponder and sort out very quickly because I don't think, if we were under this impression that there is a thaw and the tariff situation is going to resolve itself, I think new fronts are getting opened, as has been the case in this Chabahar situation. Thank you very much, Foreign Secretary, for speaking with us.